Welcome back to Buckeye Talk, another edition of Outrageous Predictions. I'm Nathan Baird from cleveland.com, along with Doug Lesmerises and Stephen Means. Oregon comes to Ohio Stadium, big home opener for Ohio State, first home game in many, many days, hundreds of days, something like 600 days. It's been a long time. Stephen, what's your outrageous prediction for what happens in this game on Saturday?
So my outrageous prediction matters whether or not Kayvon Thibodeaux plays or not. If he does play, it just makes it more outrageous, but it's already an outrageous thing to say. And it's based off how the offensive line played against Minnesota. And they will give up 0 sacks, they will give up 0 tackles for loss, and they will give up 0 QB hurries. And on Thursday against Minnesota, going up against Boye Mafe, they gave up 0 sacks. They only gave up 2 tackles for loss, and they only gave up 1 QB hurry. So it's not that outrageous. It's just the fact that that's a hard thing to do when you have a quarterback, as we've talked about on Buckeye Talk, who held the ball a little bit more than maybe he should have. But also sometimes you just give up a sack. Maybe somebody just comes on a random blitz and you get a sack that way. Maybe a running back reads the hole the wrong way and you end up with a TFL. But I think this offensive line has an opportunity to make a statement on Saturday on the season opener. As Nathan said, it's been 600 days. They rearranged some guys and they kind of put some minds at ease on Thursday with the way the offensive line played. They can kind of validate it all and pretty much establish themselves as perhaps the best offensive line in the country with 0 sacks, 0 tackles for loss, and 0 QB hurries given up.
That is fairly outrageous because I think even without Kayvon Thibodeaux, this might be as good of a defense as Ohio State played last week, if not even better, even without Kayvon Thibodeaux. Doug, what's your outrageous prediction?
So we're recording this Wednesday night. We did a Buckeye Talk podcast this morning. I did our Clee show hit for 45 minutes this afternoon. I did a Browns podcast tonight. And so I don't care what Steven said. My outrageous prediction is Ohio State will give up 1 sack against Oregon, because my whole thing was the thing he just said, and I don't have time to come up with a second thing. Okay, I have time to come up with one thing. All I do is talk. All I do is be on videos and be on podcasts. I'm out of thoughts. Here's what I looked up. Last year, when I was very about Penn State's defensive ends, Jason Owe and Shaka Toney, Nicholas Petit-Frere and Thayer Munford stoned them all night. They didn't do anything. Penn State still got 2 sacks in that game. There was a linebacker got a sack and a defensive tackle got a sack. Last week, Oregon had 4 sacks. One was Kayvon Thibodeaux that forced a fumble. Noah Sewell, a linebacker, had one. They still had 4 sacks, even with Kayvon Thibodeaux basically out of the game, limping around after the 5th series. I do think the idea of applying it, whether he plays or not, I don't think he can be himself. And as we get closer on Wednesday, again, Mario Cristobal, the Oregon coach, said he's trying to get back. We're going to be cautious. He said a thing about like, we're not hiding injuries. We're being upfront about stuff. It's reminding me a little bit of in 2008 when Ohio State went to USC for game 2, I think it was, and Beanie Wells had hurt his foot in game 1. And it was kind of like all week, it was like, is Beanie Wells going to play? Man, like if Beanie Wells doesn't play, I'm not sure Ohio State can hang, right? Like this is like a big, important thing. And by the time we got to like Friday, Jim Tressel was saying he's probably doubtful. I think Tressel said that on Thursday or Friday. He tried, like, right, but he was a star and he didn't play in a game where like his team like really, really needed him, but he couldn't play, right? This guy was going to be a 1st-round pick. You can't overextend a guy with a foot injury like that and risk further damage. It just feels like it's going to be hard for him to be himself, even if he tries. And so that's why the thing I agree, Stephen, is like, I think he's either going to not play or not be himself. And either of those will affect this prediction. I'm just not quite as bold as you. I think they get a random thing in there, but basically ditto Steven. Sorry.
You want to
Nathan,
join us,
call
Nathan?
up from now on, call on me first all the time for the outrageous.
I'm taking the Ducks to get 7 sacks. I'm going off the reservation. No. I'm actually going to kind of an opposite direction with mine. Last week or last season, Oregon is kind of like Ohio State in maybe they run the ball more than people think. I think people know that Oregon likes to line up and run the ball as a spread offense. But because it's a fast-paced offense, they put up a lot of points. I think people associate that with throwing the ball. And we've talked before about how people have a misconception about how much Ohio State throws the ball. They actually are a run-heavy offense. Oregon was about a 60% share last year on its runs versus passes. Last week it was 66%. They ran the ball a lot against Fresno State, which you sometimes do when you have a lead. But they've also got two good running backs and a quarterback who can run the ball a little bit. I am taking Ohio State. I don't know how you want to term this. I think it's going to be closer to a 50-50 split because I think Ohio State is going to force Oregon to throw the ball. I think Ohio State is going to be able to come out. They're not going to play. Oregon's got a good offensive line. I don't know that they have an offensive line as good as Minnesota's. And I think that this defense is going to get a little bit healthier this week. They're going to, we think, probably get some guys back in this secondary, at least a step closer towards being healthy. I think the defense overall is just going to be better this second time around. They're going to be playing at home, Ohio Stadium at their back. I think that's going to make an impact. The travel for Oregon in the early kickoffs could be an impact. I just feel like they're going to find a way. Ohio State's going to find a way to get Oregon off schedule, make them throw the ball. And when they do that, that really plays into their strengths because now that's not a strength of Anthony Brown. They're Oregon's quarterback. He's much more of a dual threat guy than he is a pocket passer. So once they force him to go into the air, I think then now you start talking about the sack numbers for Ohio State potentially getting interesting in a game like this if they can force him into a lot of passing situations and make them a little bit more one-dimensional in the way that Ohio State would want them to be one-dimensional. If they're one-dimensional in the way that Oregon wants to be one-dimensional is probably not the right way, but leaning towards that dimension, then that plays into Oregon's chances of springing an upset here. Get the text 614-350-3315. We'll be texting Saturday morning before the game with updates on the status report and everything else we see. We'll be sending texts during the game with what's going on, and text us your questions because that's going to populate the Buckeye Talk post-game podcast that we do right after the game.